For 400 years, the samurai were the deadliest men in Japan. Their swords decided who ruled entire provinces. Their loyalty was worth more than gold, and their swords were feared across the country. Then, in 1603, the wars simply stopped. And for the next 250 years, an entire warrior class had to answer a question none of them were trained for. What do you do when the thing that defines you disappears? This is the story of why it sucked to be a samurai in peacetime. To understand what was lost, you have to understand what came before. For over a century, Japan tore itself apart in what's now called the Sengoku period, the age of warring states. Samurai were the currency of power itself. The more you commanded, the more land you controlled. Then, in the year 1600, a warlord named Tokugawa Ieyasu won a single, decisive battle at Sekigahara and effectively ended the war for good. By 1603, he was declared shogun. And what followed was something almost no one alive had ever experienced. Over 250 consecutive years without a major war on Japanese soil. Historians call it the Pax Tokugawa, the Tokugawa Peace. For most people, peace was a mercy. For the samurai, a class that made up roughly 10% of Japan's entire population, close to 2 million people, peace was an identity crisis with no end date. Here's the part almost nobody pictures when they imagine a samurai. For most of the Edo period, the average samurai's daily life looked less like a duel and more like a desk job. With no wars to fight, samurai were absorbed into the machinery of government, becoming administrators, tax collectors, record keepers, and enforcers of an increasingly rigid social order. Some historians call them fighting bureaucrats, men trained from childhood for the battlefield, spending their careers instead managing rice ledgers. The shogunate enforced this new order through a system called sunken kotai, a policy that required regional lords, the daimyo, to alternate living between their home territory and the capital, Edo, every other year. When they left, their families stayed behind in Edo, permanently, as hostages in all but name. It was a brilliant system for the shogun. It kept every lord in the country financially drained and politically leashed. But it meant thousands of samurai spent their lives essentially as full-time escorts and administrators for a system designed to keep their own masters powerless. The sword didn't disappear, but increasingly it became a symbol you carried rather than a tool you used. Here's the cruelest irony of the entire period. Samurai were, by law, the highest class in Japanese society, ranked above farmers, craftsmen, and merchants. And many of them were quietly, humiliatingly broke.
Samurai didn't earn wages the way we think of them.
They were paid in stipends of rice by their daimyo, a fixed hereditary amount, regardless of how the economy actually moved. But Japan's economy during this period was shifting rapidly toward currency and trade. And rice prices fluctuated constantly.
When rice prices fell, a samurai's real income silently shrank with it, even though his official stipend on paper never changed.
Meanwhile, the merchant class, officially the lowest rung of society, beneath even farmers, was growing wealthy from trade, money lending, and the very transactions samurai depended on to survive. It got so severe that many samurai were forced to quietly borrow money from the merchants they were legally supposed to outrank, sinking into debt to the very class beneath them on paper. Some families lived what one historian called poverty with a sword, starving in patched robes, while still required to maintain the appearance of aristocratic honor at all times. Imagine being told your entire life that you are better than everyone around you, while quietly starving because the class you legally cannot leave has no place for you anymore. If losing purpose was the slow tragedy, becoming Ronin was the sudden one. A Ronin, literally wave man, someone adrift without a shore, was a samurai who had lost his master, whether through death, disgrace, or a lord's own fall from power. Losing your master wasn't just an inconvenience. Under the samurai code, it was supposed to end with your own death. Seppuku, ritual suicide, performed as an act of loyalty and honor to the master you had lost. A samurai who survived without a master instead was, in the eyes of society, living in disgrace. By the Edo period, the shogunate's rigid laws had made this worse. Thousands of ronin appeared, and unlike earlier eras, they were now largely barred from finding a new lord to serve. There simply weren't enough positions in a system this locked in place. Some found work as bodyguards or mercenaries. Some became teachers of swordsmanship, trading the reality of combat for its performance. Some, quietly and shamefully by the standards of the time, became farmers, laborers, or petty criminals, the exact classes they had once ranked above. No story captures this entire tragedy better than one true event. One that shocked all of Japan and is still remembered today. In March of 1701, inside Edo Castle itself, a lord named Asano Naganori lost control after months of provocation by a court official named Kira Yoshinaka. Asano drew his blade and struck Kira, a crime punishable by death, since any drawn sword inside the shogun's own castle was considered an unforgivable act, regardless of the reason. Asano was ordered to end his own life that same day. His lands were seized, his household was dissolved, and his 300 samurai, men who had served him loyally, became Ronin overnight through no fault of their own.
47 of them refused to accept it quietly. Led by a retainer named Oishi Yoshio, they spent nearly 2 years in careful, disciplined planning.
Some reportedly living as drunkards and disgraced men in public to lower Kira's guard, hiding their true intent completely.
On a snowy night in December of 1702, they struck. They stormed Kira's mansion and delivered justice for their fallen lord. Then carried his head to Asano's grave, completing the act of loyalty their code demanded. The shogunate faced an impossible decision. The 47 had committed a capital crime, but they had done it in the name of loyalty. The single value the entire samurai class was built on. Executing them as common criminals would insult everything the samurai code stood for. The compromise. The 47 were sentenced to death, but permitted to die with honor through seppuku rather than public execution like criminals. On February 4th, 1703, all 47 performed the ritual with the same discipline that had defined their entire 2-year plan.
They were buried beside their master at Sengakuji Temple in Edo, where people still visit their graves to this day, over 300 years later.
Their story became legend, endlessly retold in kabuki theater, prints, and later film. But strip away the legend, and what's left is this: 47 men who gave up everything, including their lives, because the world they trained for no longer had a place for the loyalty they still believed in. It's worth understanding what seppuku actually was, not as spectacle, but as the era understood it. A final act of composure and control, not violence for its own sake. The condemned would bathe, share a final meal, and dress in white, a color reserved for death in Japanese tradition. Many composed a death poem beforehand, considered essential proof that they faced the end with a clear, composed mind. A trusted second, called a kaishakunin, stood by. Their role was to bring the ritual to a swift and merciful end, sparing the condemned prolonged suffering. It was considered an act of respect, not cruelty. By the Edo period, seppuku had become so formalized, it was described not as something done, but something performed. A ritual with centuries of ceremony built around a single, final act of composure. It remained part of samurai law and culture for the rest of the Edo period. A constant, quiet reminder that honor for a samurai could cost everything, even in a time of total peace. For 2.5 centuries, the samurai held on to status, ritual, and the outward appearance of purpose, even as their real power quietly eroded underneath them. Then, in 1868, everything changed at once.
the Tokugawa shogunate collapsed, and imperial power was restored under Emperor Meiji. A period of rapid modernization that had little patience for a hereditary warrior class in an industrializing nation. Within a few short years, samurai stipends were abolished entirely, converted into one-time government bonds, worth a fraction of what families had once relied on for generations. Then, in 1876, came the final symbolic blow. The Haitore Edict banned the wearing of swords in public entirely, stripping away the one visible symbol that had defined the samurai identity for 700 years. Some samurai adapted, becoming businessmen, teachers, or officials in the new Japan. Others could not, and a final doomed uprising led by the former samurai, Saigo Takamori, ended in defeat in 1877, often remembered as the last stand of the samurai era. The class that had once decided the fate of an entire nation ended not on a battlefield, but through paperwork. A series of laws, edicts, and bonds that made loyalty, honor, and the sword itself simply obsolete. So when you picture a samurai, the sword, the armor, the unshakable code, remember the quieter, sadder version of that story. 250 years of men trained for a purpose the world no longer needed, holding on to honor, because it was the only thing peacetime couldn't take from them. Some of them found new purpose. Many simply endured, generation after generation, waiting for a war that never came back. If you want more deep dives into history's hardest identities to hold on to, subscribe to Sucks to Be. The next one's already waiting.